Hi guys, welcome to Agatan Foundation. This is Sean Kamali. I wanted to begin by saying Happy Atheist Day. It was happy belated Atheist Day. It was April 1st. And to say thank you guys so much. You have no idea what you've done for me with your wonderful messages, with your amazing support, all from all around the world. People offered their work, and just the messages itself, it was just unbelievable to me. How kind, how mind-blowing. Thank you. You have no idea what you've done for me. So in this episode, I wanted to talk about the past, present, and the future of Islam. And to pretty much start by saying this is a scary moment now for me. As soon as I post this, I can never take it back. So this is a step forward to a point that I can never travel to so many countries, and I can never feel completely safe anymore, just by stating my opinion, sadly. So, the history of Islam. Islam began with Muhammad, who received messages from God, and which returned it to a book called Quran, which is the holy book of Muslims. There are two parts to Quran and the beginning of Islam. It is before Muhammad gained power in the region, and after that. Before that, he was much more, or the messages were much more passive, loving, and more humane. After the total power, the messages became a little bit more political, a lot more political, and a lot more aggressive and harsh. I don't want to really focus on that part because that's the most well-known part of his life and the history of Islam. After Muhammad, his successor was Abu Bakr, who was the father of his third wife, Aisha, which is known to the mother of Muslims. She was a very important figure in Islamic history, and a very controversial person because she was 6 when Muhammad married her, and she was 9 when Muhammad had sex with her. Which is why in some Islamic countries the age of marriage for women is 9. And a lot of countries, due to progress of secularism and humanity and the advancement of morality, the age of marriage is actually much older, but clergymen and imams and mullahs, they want to actually bring it back down to the age of 9 or 13, and they try to push it, but happily this isn't really happening anywhere in the Islamic world. After Aisha's father, Abu Bakr, came to power, he started pretty much a new dynasty or empire, which I really dislike to call it the Islamic Empire, because Islam is a faith and it has nothing to do with race, it has nothing to do with the identity of political power, even though Islam is the most politically driven religion in the world. It has a lot of politics in it, but I prefer to actually call it Arabian Empire or civilization or anything like that, instead of saying it Islamic, because that really does not make any sense to me. So since there's no way for me to actually know what was the drive, was it Islam, or it was the power that used Islam as a tool, let's just leave that aside and move on to the huge difference between the different sects of Islam, which is Shia and Sunni, and why they're different, and where did it begin, which was pretty much the dispute between Muslims of who should be the successor after Muhammad. Shias believe that it was Ali, and Sunnis believe that it was Abu Bakr. And Sunnis believe in caliphate, and Shias believe in imams. And the difference is, so there were three different ways of a caliph to actually come to power. One was being chosen by the predecessor. The second was to be elected by the group. And third was by brute force. And Shias believe that it shouldn't be the same way that Muhammad was the prophet of God. God chose Muhammad. God should actually choose the next person who is going to be the imam, or is going to get the throne from Muhammad, or the power from him. And they believed in imams because his son-in-law, Muhammad's son-in-law, was Ali, which was the fourth person who came to power. But Shias believe that Muhammad chose him as the successor, and Sunnis kind of screwed them over by choosing Abu Bakr. And Ali's pretty much predecessors, or the successors, worked based on blood. Ali's son, and then the other son, and then their sons, and so on. And together there are 12 imams. The last one went to hiding. Some Shias believe that he still is alive. He has eternal life. Some Shias believe that he went to heaven and waiting to come back. Different types of belief and confusion. It just creates more and more sects and different groups to be able to hate each other and fight over some made-up belief system with absolutely no evidence to support it. So, let's jump into the golden age of Islam, which was about, let's say, 300 to 600 years. And they call it the golden age of Islam. I like to call it again. The problem is that it's hard for people to remember the name of the dynasty, and to make it easy, we came up with a Islamic Empire, which is horrible, but in my opinion, which now on I like to refer it as the Arabian Empire, because it was the Arabs who actually did all this. And so there was a 3 to 600 years of the golden age of Arabian Empire, which they focused on science and education and all of that, which brought forth all the achievements. And there was a period of great prosperity. A lot of mathematics, physicians, and a lot of other professions in that aspect were supported, and a lot of scientists were able to show what they have to offer. And back in the days, it was the governments that they, just like right now, funded the scientists. So if a government was anti-science, this could be a discussion for another video, just like Republicans, then the science would actually go down. And I say this not because I'm Democrat, not because I have anything against Republicans, but my educational background is finance. And I don't believe, and I don't follow the regular rules of what people say. So I hear it and just go with it. I believe that we have to research things for ourselves and come up with a correct answer. And the correct answer to me is usually something that we're not told. I have this motto that I believe that we should follow the money. Following the money gives us information that otherwise, most likely, we're not getting it from news or the information outside. For example, if I want to vote for a candidate, or study a candidate after they're elected, what I don't focus on is what they say, because he or she is a politician. Politician's job is to argue, and this is very sad. Unfortunately, this creates a horrible, horrible situation for democracy. This is a perfect example of how democracy fails, because what they do is lie and deceive and say what actually helps them to get elected, instead of actually being honest, and the process being through honesty, so the best informed electorate can actually elect the best possible candidate. So instead of looking at what they say, I again follow the money. I look at how much of a budget they have for science, research, education, and all that. And sadly, unfortunately, this is the case, since Nixon, I know, which even though he was Republican, he was actually one of the most pro-science presidents in the history of the United States. He created NASA. He had some fantastic things, despite, you know, the horrible things that happened and all that stuff. Let's not go there. But Democrats so far has been so much dominating better in education, science, research, and all that. Again, I'm not promoting that. Don't attack me for it. Just bear with me. I'm just reporting what I know. I know this is actually way more intense conversation for people. I used to think it's religion, but I know now, oh my God, no. Talk about politics and people want to rip you apart. Your fellow countrymen, not even like enemies outside of the country, which is crazy to me. But, so during that period of time, that Arabian Empire did fantastic. As we can tell from the result of that great period, it was the most of the stars that we can see with a telescope, with a regular telescope, that it was a technology of, you know, that time, could most of these stars that we see have an Arabic name. Algebra is an Arabic name. Algebra, like Al-Ghazali, which is another horrible person, which the influence of Al-Ghazali type people, especially him, destroyed that progress, because he said, like, for example, mathematics is the work of devil, and combined with the Islamic, well, I'm sorry, I was actually doing it, with Arabian Empire being attacked by the Mongolian Empire, and the Black Death, all these three influences, I think, was the cause of that period of fantastic science and work and technology to be destroyed. And one of the horrific, terrible, worst damages in the history of humankind was through the Mongolian Empire attacking other countries, because they didn't just conquer, they burnt everything on their way. And one of the things that they destroyed was libraries. And with libraries being gone, everything that we worked in the past is gone. So it set back Arabs, same as Persians, same as anyone who was in their way, decades back to the time that they didn't have that information, since all the resources were gone based on burning the libraries. So from the past, let's move on to, let's say, 1950s. In 1950, Saudi Arabia signed a contract with the United States to produce oil 50-50. Iran had the same had a contract with England, but 100% of the oil of Iran used to go to England. And I know this because, you know, I'm Iranian American, and this is a sensitive subject. So, in the same sense, like, you might not be familiar with how Middle Easterns think, but actually United States and the Western countries have done a lot of damage in Middle East, and they're still continuing to do so. And this makes a lot of Middle Eastern unease and skeptic about the true intentions of the Western countries when they claim we want to do something. For example, the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan or anything else, because throughout the history they had a horrible experience of this. And one of the examples is what I'm gonna actually tell you guys. So early 1950s, the first elected democratic prime minister of Iran was overthrown by CIA and England and the United States. The terminology for it was Project Ajax, I believe. His name was Mossadegh. Mossadegh was thrown out of power because for the first time he actually nationalized the oil of Iran. Before that, 100% of oil of Iran belonged to England. And he tried to actually renegotiate it with England to do a similar deal such as Saudis, to have it 50-50, but England refused and they took him out of power, which it's after 60 years the documents are out by CIA and everything that actually CIA helped and funded the thugs and religious extremists and all of that type people, aggressive people, to protest in the streets and all of that. It's a horrible, sad reality of the past. And finally, the very first time that Iran, after many experiencing monarchies, was having a democratic possibility. And United States and England destroyed it. And they gave the power to Shah, which was the king of Iran. Shah means king. And I know you guys are familiar with him, especially the people that are as old as me or older, which is 18, actually 21, because of this. So Iranians and Middle Easterns in general, they have a kind of like a untrusting history with the United States or the West in general. And so after Shah came to power, Iran, I would say Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Iraq, all these countries were actually secular countries. The hijab wasn't mandatory. They could drink alcohol, which is banned in most religious countries or theocracies in the Middle East due to the taboo of drinking in Islam. Hijab, like I said, wasn't mandatory. And they were prosperous, going through the change of becoming more like a Western countries. Western influences were extremely high on those countries. The movie industry, it was open. People actually could go to a cinema and watch, foreign films, which foreign films being Western movies. And it was actually very prosperous, to the point that Iran was said in 20 years it's going to become one of the actually most one of the superpower countries on earth. Sadly, it didn't happen. Now let's go back again to the time Mossadegh was overthrown by England and the United States. There was a contract signed with Iran and England that 50-50 the oil of Iran with England. And this contract expired in 1978. In 1979, the regime of Iran, which was supported by the United States, which was pro-West, was overthrown by Ayatollah, who was not actually the chosen person of the Iranians. The Iranian Revolution didn't happen supporting him. He was the successor of the Iranian Revolution. There were a lot of communist Iranians who through the help of Russia, actually wanted to overthrow Shah. And that was actually one of the major reasons the United States was such a great friends with Shah. But this is probably the most hippiest and most pro-controversy thing you ever hear from me. The contract ended in 78. 79 he was overthrown. Coincidence? I think not. In 2009 there was an uprising in Iran. People wanted to change the regime of Iran, as I probably can actually show here. What people are saying is, Obama, are you with us or you're with them? And sadly, throughout the time that Islamic Republic came to power, since 79, United States and Israel both have been working and doing business with Iran, whether you know it or not. Actually, Reagan almost was charged for treason, high treason, because the United States was selling weapons to Iran for the 8 years of the war between Iran and Iraq, which started when I was 1 year old and lasted obviously until I was 9. Crazy that during that time Iraq used biological and chemical weapons against Iranians, and still people are dying in Iran because of that, through cancer, skin problems, all of that. Yet magically United States didn't have a problem with it back in the days.
2 jets swooped low to bomb a Kurdish town recently taken by Iran. An Iranian army camera caught the moment of impact, not high explosives, but cyanide gas. In less time than it took Iranian helicopters to fly over Halabja, some 5,000 civilians were killed. Many were frozen in the vain act of trying to protect babies and children.
I'm a U.S. citizen. Let me clear my throat by saying this, that first time I came to the United States I was 7. And since then I dreamed of living in the U.S. and becoming a U.S. citizen. And I am now, and this is my country, regardless of anyone says anything, which actually they do. I've been called a sand nigger, diaper head, go back to your country, go back where you came from. And just yesterday, someone commented on my last video that I spoke to you guys, that who is this camel humping Arab? Shut the F up. And he didn't use the humping, he used the F word, but I'm not using it because I want my video to be monetized. Politics. So maybe another video can be about how I really do believe that we don't have Islamophobia, but there is some sort of phobia and backlash towards Muslims. And by Muslims, I don't mean you have to be Muslim. You have to look like Arab. And that's good enough for those to judge you and dismiss anything you have to say. So as I was saying, in 2009, there was an uprising, and I became very involved in supporting or wanting to convey the message of Iranians in Iran, which they have no voice, and try to convey their message without any political agenda to the Western countries. So I actually held a protest in the city of Irvine, California, for 6 months with the help of others. And during this time, I learned so much about politics firsthand, because what we think about politics is so different than the reality of it. How much money can influence everything. Before that, I thought it's about integrity, it's about the message, and now I know, hell no. It's about who's stronger and who has a bigger or more important agenda, who has a bigger supporter, who has more money to spend. And sadly, that's my reality. It could be completely wrong in other cases, but in my case, that was the deal. So I wanted to know more about it, and I have massive amount of respect for Noam Chomsky. So I contacted him, and him being an unbelievably wonderful person, he answered me. I asked him many questions, and to pretty much all of them, he said, "I don't know," which was a best answer I could possibly look for, because this is a genuine person who's giving a genuine answer based on what he knows, and he's being honest with saying, "I don't know." I loved it. One of the only question that he answered was, I asked him, what is your prediction of this movement succeeding and Iranians being able to overthrow the regime? And he said, every movement, every revolution needs three things: support of the outside countries, leadership, and the will of the people. In this case, there's the will of the people, but there's no support of outside countries, and there's no leadership. So I give it 5%. And magically, he was absolutely right. I loved it though. That became kind of like an extremely important factor in my movement and everything else, and how I look at politics now and revolutions. When I look back to the revolution of Iran, I see the Islamic Republic of Iran pretty much came to power because Khomeini was exiled to France. Why exiled, first of all? Even though Shah actually killed and executed the major problems and major enemies of his regime, Khomeini was never executed, he was exiled. So, and then France protected him. And then he came back to Iran. This is kind of like all nonsense right next to each other, and I was just blown away by like, why? I'm not going to make a conclusion of saying if this happened and I don't have an answer for it, therefore this, but at the same time, come on. 78, the oil contract ended. 79, Iranian pretty much revolution happened. And why Khomeini was protected, and all of these questions. It is something crazy that I can never logically to a certain point actually find the correct answer to it. There's a lot of answers and opinion about it, but I can never say with 100% certainty that I know the answer and this is it. Therefore, I just have to leave it where it is. Sadly, I'd love to know, but I can't. So, what happened, going back again, what happened since the 50s that there was secularism in majority Islamic countries to now that we have this huge problem? To me, everything started with Saudi Arabia. There's two influences. One of them is the Saudi Arabia. For every Muslim, there's a responsibility, religious responsibility, for them to have to go to Hajj. Hajj is where they go around a cubic building, which you can see over here. It's called the House of God, and it was built by Abraham, supposedly. And it's a duty of every Muslim to go there at least once. So how many Muslims do we have on this planet? Over 1 billion people. If every single Muslim goes to Hajj and spends only, this is extremely low, $1,000, how much money can Saudi Arabia make from this? The tourism, the food that they have to eat, the things that they shop, and the fees and everything else. This is unbelievably profitable for Saudi Arabia. So I think they started with advertising the idea of people need to go to Hajj. And again, this is I'm not saying I know this. This is my perspective, and I believe they saw the result. This is, again, finance economics. You can find it really easy by searching anything, just boom, right there. Then they started actually advertising their type of Islam, their belief in Islam, which is Wahhabism. Wahhabism is very harsh, very old school, and all the beheading and crazy stuff is that. There are different versions of Islam, which I don't know if you guys know or not, that are extremely, I would say, hippie-ish, passive, to the point that I can even say it's much more passing than different sects of Christianity. So it wasn't Islam in general that I think it was the problem. I think it was the version of Islam that Saudi Arabia is actually exporting to the world. Of course, it is Islam at the root cause, but Islam also could and did change to a moderate, less aggressive, less barbaric thing, as the other religions have. And Saudi Arabia didn't want that. By exporting this aggressive, different version of Islam to the world, Saudi Arabia could guarantee two things. One, more Hajj-going people. Two, more supporters of Islam, and actually more influence everywhere. Which I think their influence has increased dramatically since the 50s, let's say. And Iran, who just had the revolution, became the representative of Shia, which Ayatollah is the representative of Shia. And this caused a proxy war between these two countries outside of their borders. Iran started dominating some countries like Lebanon, Palestine, and different countries. And Saudi Arabia started influencing actually the majority of the countries by this new tactical behavior. And I blame completely United States for this, and the West, because they've never done anything against this. We go to war with Iraq and Afghanistan. I think it was, well, Afghanistan maybe, but this is absolutely BS. Because instead of attacking the root cause of all these terrorist problems, we shake hands and kiss their hand of the Saudis that they're actually the #1 threat to humanity in that aspect. Regardless of Democrat or Republican, Trump went and danced, did the sword dance with them. Obama went and bent over in front of them. And this is pretty much a ritual of every U.S. president who goes there and kisses their hand, and because they spend money, they're probably the biggest purchaser of United States weapons, and they're actually one of the biggest investors in stock market of United States. So we need their business, therefore we're going to kiss their ass. And this is what we've done. We completely ignore the human rights violation in Saudi Arabia, to the point that they cut hands, they have child marriages, they have pretty much slavery. Women just got the right to actually go outside the house without a guardian, or just got the right to drive. They're still completely a misogynistic, man-dominated, misogynistic society. We don't talk about it, we don't care about it, and this unfortunate human rights violation continues to go on. On top of it, to me, Saudi Arabia is actually influencing more and more countries, and actually exporting more soldiers and creating more soldiers in all the countries, which eventually it is impossible for the Western countries to actually disagree and put sanctions on Saudi Arabia or do anything to change their behavior, because they would have so many supporters, undercover Muslim extremists in different countries, that with a fraction of a second, they can cause so much problem, which they have. Look at 9/11. How many of the hijackers were Saudi Arabian? How many of them were Afghans? How many of them were Iraqis? Who was leading this horrific event? A Saudi guy living in Afghanistan. And instead we attacked Afghanistan, which again, we caused the problem in the first place. Osama bin Laden was trained by CIA to actually fight against the Soviet Union for 18 years in Afghanistan. And Soviet Union, the second superpower in the world, couldn't take an inch of Afghanistan after 18 years war. Are you kidding me? So, sorry for getting a little passionate about it. So there's actually a lot more. I blame Islam immensely. Don't get me wrong. But there is actually a lot of things behind it. That Middle East is the way it is. People are not bad in general. And we can see by the 600 years period of golden age of, let's say, Arabian civilization, and even the 50s, people or Muslims can pass that aggressive, horrible religion the same way that Jews have. They don't have power anymore, therefore they're actually one of the best religious people on the planet, which is to say they're not really religious whatsoever. So it comes to my conclusion, and sadly this is the reality, I believe, following the money and seeing the result and knowing how the policies are actually affecting the world, from the Western world, from the Middle East, from how money is being spent everywhere. I sadly don't see the Islamic problem getting better. I think it's going to get worse because the Western countries aren't really doing anything about it to actually solve the root cause of the problem, which is Saudi Arabia and Iran. Mainly Saudi Arabia to a huge extent. I don't see any result in education of the Western countries or Westerners about Islam and Muslims. Muslims are becoming more and more scary scarecrows, as I have experienced plenty in my short life in the United States in the 20 years I've been here. And sadly, I moved here in 99, and 2001 9/11 happened, and since 9/11, oh my god, I'm so glad we're past that. So now I can be actually a normal US citizen. But still, if I go to let's say 100 miles out of a major city to a small town, boom, I become a terrorist again to their eyes, because I look Middle Eastern, therefore I have to be Arab. Arabs are Muslim, and Muslims are terrorists, therefore I'm a terrorist. And this is the crazy logic that a lot of people actually so maybe next video can be about my experience in this, let's say, in the West, and how my experiences have been in traveling, because I love traveling. I think that is my absolute passion more than anything else in life. And human interaction, not just going and seeing buildings. I just love to learn about new cultures, new people, and have interaction with people. I think every single time I do that, I become a better person. Again, I'm going off topic. I'm so sorry about this. So my prediction is no change. And everything is going to get worse unless we actually educate ourselves and educate other people around us about Saudi Arabia, about Islam, about the differences we have. And one of the most extremely important points to me about the education about different Muslims, and when you see someone who doesn't look white, looks Middle Eastern or looks Arab or whatever, how we should actually behave towards them. Because a good example is this. If I was you know, this is my genetics. I'm gonna look like this no matter what. Maybe my clothes is gonna change, the style of the glasses I wear is gonna change. I wouldn't have an accent, but I'm still gonna look like this, regardless of if I was born here or not. So as a U.S. citizen, who's been approached by CIA to work for CIA? I have. Which, because it's not my type of, my personality is not that type of person, I refuse. But I have been approached by CIA to work for CIA. Imagine being a CIA agent who's putting his life on the line and going to a battlefield or the battle zone or outside the country and pretty much risking his life for the safety of the United States and United States citizens. Yet this guy comes back home and goes to a bar in Alabama or Mississippi in a small town. And the next person sitting right next to you calls you a sand nigger. As I have, not in that town, actually in California, in Southern California, for all places too. And this person calls you that. That is just unbelievably idiotic to me. That this person is risking his life for that person's safety, and that person doesn't know, and this person cannot tell them, but just because they look different, he gets this. Imagine a young kid who was born in the United States. He's 16, so the adrenaline is actually huge and very influential, and his frontal lobe cortex is not developed completely. So his risk-taking part of the brain and calculation for the future is not developed to the point of being called wise or being able to completely calculate the future. Yet this kid goes to school, and in school someone else from a different color, let's say, body, has a racial thing about like you being a terrorist or something. Now, this tells the kid that he's not accepted. He's not one of the society. He's not one of everybody else. How easy do you think it is for that kid to be recruited to an organization like ISIS? And ISIS is retarded to me, and I'm so glad for it, because if they were smart, they would just recruit and not make people do anything crazy or go fight for them, but just sit on them and have influences in different countries. Which Saudi Arabia is very much doing, which Russia is doing to us now, but let's not go there. For a kid who is not accepted in a land that he was born and he belongs there, and everything he knows and his culture is that, let's say if it's English, American, French, or anything else, just because he looks different, just because his parents are Muslim or they look Muslim, it is a horrible, terrible thing to put that kid through that experience that can be recruited and can be influenced by outside, well-trained, knowledgeable person or persons that they know how to recruit people. Majid Nawaz was actually a recruiter himself, and he knows the techniques and he talks about it, and I love the guy. And these are real things that we're actually facing, but yet nobody wants to talk about it. In news, in social media, and everyone, including myself, is actually scared of getting into this particular topic of Islam and Islamism and everything like that, because especially for someone like me, is sandwiched between Muslims, bad Muslims. I have wonderful, amazing, good Muslim friends. Well, my best friend is a Muslim, openly. But again, I have a lot of more analogies that I'm actually bringing it into my book, and I explain all of that later. But that he's not truly Muslim, blah blah blah. But we have this problem that I have to be so scared of talking about it. I know for sure, well, I've known this for for a while that there's a death penalty waiting for me if I go back to Iran. And there's nothing I can do about it. Now, because of this video and probably the videos in the future, I cannot go to Turkey maybe. I cannot go to some parts of England maybe. And this is horrible, just because of miscommunication. And I promise you, a lot of those aggressive Muslims are still not as bad as we think. A lot of them. Now, I'm not saying all of them. And a lot of people that they shun away from, that they think they're racists, are not actually racist towards their type of Islam, or they're not bigots towards their type of being Muslim. But because we cannot have an open dialogue with each other, because we cannot express ourselves from the taboo of the side of Muslims and the side of, let's say, the left, people like me are crushed in a situation that freedom of speech pretty much is a dream. I just made a video that I labeled it as Christopher Hitchens destroying Judaism. I was contacted with a couple of, I almost said friends, because I really consider you guys as friends. And if you guys, any of you guys are from Southern California, contact me at agatanfnd@gmail.com so we can hang out. And maybe we can videotape it and bug other people with it. But about the video of Christopher Hitchens destroying Judaism. A couple of people contacted me and they told me they had videos about Judaism and their account was completely shut down and their YouTube channel deleted just because they spoke against Judaism, not Jews. There's a huge difference. Same with Islam. You have no idea how many times I actually post, I have to ban people from my channel because I have anti-Islam material with Douglas Murray, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Christopher Hitchens and all that. And bigot, racist mofos come and say, hey, we should kill them all, nuke them all, or things like that, which right away I ban. And this is sad. I just don't see a better future. It's horrible to leave or end this conversation in this note, but it's getting worse and worse. Talking about it, it's less and less possible. The professionals are getting better and better tools such as internet and science behind it to recruit people and to lie and deceive and all that. I don't see anything happening to Saudi Arabia or Iran. And this problem is going to get worse and worse, and more Muslims are going to get hurt and killed and tortured than obviously Westerners. But a lot of Westerners are going to get hurt as well, which only creates this clash between Middle Easterners and non-Middle Easterners. I don't want to say white or Caucasian or black or blah blah blah. And I will refuse to use the terminology African American, because African American is someone who was born in Africa and moved to America. Like Iranian American, African American is someone who's born in Africa. So I don't fall into the BS part of the political correctness. I think more and more honestly we talk about these subjects, more and more we can achieve, and more we can change the life of our fellow human beings to better. Thank you guys for watching this again. Please leave me your comments. I know this has been way too long, and thank you for someone who actually survived and wasn't bored until this point. Thank you so much. Again, you have no idea what you guys have done for me. I have been posting a lot more videos because of your encouragement and because of your wonderful, amazingly great support. All the comments that I read under these type of videos that I'm in it, it's been incredibly positive, and I really don't know. I'm doing all of this because of you guys. By the way, since I posted the last video, after 6 months my channel started to be monetized again, magically. I have no idea how, but YouTube decided to actually monetize my channel since the last video that I was complaining about what YouTube was doing. So please keep in touch. Let me know what you can do for Agatan Foundation. Nothing, zero money goes to me. I actually pay a lot more out of my pocket for doing all of this. The equipment, time, editing programs, people that they have to help me. Fiverr is actually one of the great websites that I very much recommend. I'm not getting paid from them. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of services that are offered there for very affordable prices. So keep it going. Let me know what to do. Let me know what you want to know. I will bug you more with these kind of videos because this is unbelievable. I never thought I could have a chance of connecting with so many amazingly wonderful people. And please join my Patreon. Patreon is a website that you guys can support me for making these videos. If you don't want a commitment like that, you can always donate to agatonfnd@gmail.com. That's my PayPal account. You can also buy t-shirts and materials underneath the video, and like and share the video. Just give me a compliment. That really actually works for me because to be honest with you, what I mean by compliment, I'm not just being attention whole. I am just saying it because I had to censor myself because of the YouTube. They're just fascists. I hate that term too. I'm sorry. Anyone who doesn't like something, they just, nowadays they call them fascist. But anyway, your encouragement and like so many unbelievable messages that I got, that how my channel actually in this 6 years helped so many people to come out of the closet and become atheists, and how it changed their mind. It was just mind-boggling, and it was such a euphoric, amazing experience for me that what I'm doing is not going to waste, and actually I'm making a difference in other people's life. So thank you guys. Keep in touch, and I will be keeping in touch as well. Let me know what you want. Let me know what you think about this video, about what I do, how you can help me, and let's keep this going.